It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
What up, IDS Mob? This is your boy, HarryWilmington here. This is the Introvert Dating Success Show. And today, we're going to be talking about silly tests to check your potential woman's temperament. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I'm going to actually read a question from a guy who got into a bit of a situation with the woman he was dating. And what happened was, basically, there was something that she wanted to do at the time that he didn't want to do, and she got rage mad about it. And the reason this is important to talk about is because this thing that he did is actually a good thing that you as a guy need to be doing as a test of a woman's temperament. And I think a lot of men go into dating scenarios where they're like, I don't want to play games. I don't want to do certain things that would make her think that I don't like her. And, I don't want to have to, not text her or call her when I know that I can, because that's playing games and all this other stuff. And I think what guys do not realize is that doing some of these things is not just playing games. It's also being able to test her to see where her temperament's at. Because let's be honest, okay? Some women don't have a great temper. If they're not getting their way, they lash out, they get angry, and they'll yell at you. But a lot of guys don't do their due diligence early on, and they don't find out until way later that the woman they're with actually has a bad temperament, okay? And so some of the things that I suggested that you guys do in the first part of dating a woman, I say those things not because it's just to try to, get her to feel a certain way about you, or to make her think about you a certain way, or to build you up in her head, but it's also to protect you, to be able to separate out the women that have a good head on their shoulders from the ones that are going to just make your life a living heck, okay? So I'm gonna read this guy's question first and stop along the way to give some answers, and then I'm gonna give you guys the 5 tests that you can start to do to be able to check any woman's temperament when you start dating her, all right? So here's his message. He says, basically, about 4 days ago, me and my girlfriend came back home from having dinner. So he says girlfriend, so they're already in a relationship. He says the dinner was excellent and we had a great time. I usually go to the gym after I eat, so I changed clothes and went to the gym. After I come back, my girlfriend didn't have any clothes on and tried to initiate intercourse. Now I'll stop and say this. If you have a woman that does this, fantastic, because ideally you guys are going to want each other to where you're not going to have to be the one that always has to ask for sex. Like, ideally the woman you're with is going to want to come to you and say, hey, I'm open and I'm available and I'm ready to do it. Not necessarily every day, but you want that to be on the same level, about 50-50, like you coming to her, her coming to you, because just like you want to make her feel desired, you have a right to feel desired too. So ideally the woman you're with wants to initiate hooking up with you. But anyway, he says, I told her maybe later because I was sore from my workouts. And that's when she went off. She got very angry, and it was probably the angriest I've ever seen her. She started yelling and going on a rant. She said I had to be gay because I always tell her no. But I've actually only told her no 3 times max. Okay, so to start off with, ask yourself a question, guy. And for women watching this, ask yourself this too, okay? If this was on the other foot, if she came to you and said, hey, babe, I'm kind of sore from working out and I don't want to do it right now, maybe later, and you lashed out, how would that look? How would that be taken? If she told that story to her friends, what would her friends be saying? Oh, you got to dump him. He's not respecting your boundaries. This is that. So recognize, guy, the same goes for you too. I know in today's society, as guys, we're made to believe that we're the ones that want to hook up all the time and that we just have the testosterone that's going to make us want to do it. But it's perfectly fine also if you have times when you don't want to. Hey, I'm an older guy now, so there's definitely times now where my testosterone in terms of wanting to do it all the time isn't as high as it used to be. So if you need a break, or if you worked out and you're sore, or you're thinking, you're in your head about some stuff and it's just not the moment where you want to do some stuff, you're in your right to say that. Now, maybe she has a higher libido because he's saying that he's only rejected her 2 or 3 times. So to me, that seems like she's very much overreacting. And there could be a plethora of reasons as to why she's suddenly feeling insulted, something about her past, yada, yada, yada. None of that matters, because what matters is that if you're saying at this moment in time, you don't want to do it, and other than this moment in time, on average, you're regularly doing it with each other, then that's in your right to say that. And she needs to be respectful of what you're saying in that moment. If she doesn't feel that, then that sucks for her, but you still have the right to be like, babe, not right now. Like, this isn't really a good time for me. I'm sore or whatever, and I need to rest, okay? And this is another thing too, and this is something that I don't think a lot of women know, is that because there's a viewpoint of men as always wanting sex and always trying to go after women's sexualized parts, the negative to that is that when there's a guy that says, hey, I actually don't want to do it, I don't want to touch upon you, I'm not trying to just be about the sex in this relationship, they get called names like gay or sissy or you're not a real man. And I don't think that's fair for you either, guy, because just because you don't want to do it in this moment, how does that suddenly mean like, oh, if you're not wanting to do it, then you must be gay? If she saw you kissing another dude, I could see how she'd be like, oh, he must be gay now. But just because you said no a couple of times to sex, now all of a sudden it must be, oh, it must be because you're gay. And so that's very insulting, and I personally would not take that. At that point, I would have been like, you know what, I'm out, because you're already in the zone of like, you're going to insult me for not getting your way, and this isn't fair to me, and I don't like being called these various names. So if you need somebody that's going to do it more with you, more power to you, but I'm not taking that, okay? So anyway, he continues on, he says, she initiates sex often, and it's perfectly fine with me, but she asks so often that I have to tell her no sometimes, and when I do, she gets depressed for a week minimum. What do I do about this? I'm really confused. So this is the thing where that is her issue, and if you're a person that, let's say she wants to have sex like once a day, every single day of the week, 7 days, and your threshold is like, you only want to do it maybe 4 or 5 days out of the week. Well, it's sorry to say, you guys may not be sexually compatible. Now, that could be a thing where she becomes more understanding and she's able to like take it down a notch to maybe 4 or 5 days like you or whatever. But sometimes it may just be that she has a higher libido and she wants it a lot more and you don't. And that's perfectly fine also. If there's a way to talk about that where you guys come to some understanding and where she has her feelings less hurt, then I'd say it's worth it to talk about that. But again, I don't know based on this like what her background was. Maybe I know, I'll say this, in a lot of cases where a person's like this, they didn't get a lot of hugs as a kid, they didn't get a lot of kisses from their parents as a kid, and so they try to balance that out by having sex with a lot of guys and having sex all the time when they get into their adult relationships. Now again, if you're ideally in a relationship, you guys want to have each other, so a woman having a high sex drive is not necessarily an issue. And I'm not saying that all women that have high sex drives also had like bad childhoods and didn't get enough love as a kid. But I'm saying based on her reaction and the fact that it takes her a week to get over you saying no to her every so often, then that could mean that there's traumatic issues that happened in her past where she's relying on sex to be the thing that makes her feel as if she's truly loved. And when you're denying her that sex, it's making her feel however she felt in the past when she got rejected. But again, that's not your issue. I mean, it's yours in the sense that you're dating her and she's your girlfriend, but that's the thing that she needs to get a hold on and recognize that you saying no to her in these moments is not you fully rejecting her. It's saying, for this moment in time, this is not what I need. And even then, you said maybe later. So that means that you would have probably been more open to it later on. The fact that she was even willing to deny that and be like, how dare you do that? And what does this mean? And you must be gay. That's not a good look, guys. So this woman clearly has some kinds of issues, and that's not good, okay? Oh, and then he says, he gave an update, and he said, I had a talk with her, and it went terribly. She cursed me out and said that she would never let me leave her, and if I did, she would hurt herself, my dog, and me. She literally has been following me around the house for hours, just watching me. I'm currently in my bathroom, and she is outside the door waiting. So at that point, that's a really toxic person, and I gotta say, and this is gonna be hard to say, but don't ever fall for a person saying, if you leave me, I'm going to harm myself, because that is a manipulative tactic that's meant to keep you around because they know if you care about them that you don't want to see them at harm. And there are cases where like a person leaves and the other person ends up harming themselves. But again, it's sad to say that is not on you, but you can't let that be the thing that keeps you in the relationship if you're not happy. If you're thinking it can be worked out, talk about it, do what you got to do. But if you're thinking this woman's toxic, she's not letting me, say no to sex, then you got to figure out a way to get out of that, because that's going to be a long time thing of her using emotional manipulation to be able to get her way with you, and that's not what you want to get into, okay? But anyway, the point of reading this is to let you, so this is an example of this guy did something that you could see she had a very, very strong negative reaction to, that had he tested this earlier on before they got into a relationship, it would have been easier to track this, see what her reaction is, and then say, I don't want to deal with that, and get out, okay? And so I'm going to go over some things that I've gone over on these shows before, but these are things that I highly recommend you as a guy do in those first 3 months of dating a woman before she's your girlfriend, so you can test out her temperament to see how she reacts to stuff and see if she's handling it in a way that's positive or toxic, okay? So based on this message, the first thing you want to test out is denying her sex. And this is the thing that I've learned by accident because I was very late to the sex game. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 23. So what I found was that when I was like, at the time, rejecting women for sex, it's almost like they would want to do it a lot more. And so I learned like, oh, so I don't have to be the one that's kind of constantly coming on to them because women want sex too. A lot of times more than we do. And if they really, really like us and really want to like be with us, and women are all about being in love and being in relationships and finding the one. And so that also goes with them having sex. They are going to, if they really, really like you, do everything they can to let you know they want to have it, okay? Which is a great position to be in. With that said, though, there's this narrative that men are always going to accept it every single time, which is how this guy got tripped up because the woman's probably thinking, he's saying no, but men always want sex. But that's the thing, guy, is that you can't be so hooked up on sex because then they'll know that that's the way that you can be used. And so what you have to do is at some point early on, not saying like obviously the first time it comes to your attention that she wants sex, you're gonna probably do some stuff, okay? But I'd say about that, like that 4th or 5th time, if she's being suggestive or say you're at her place and she's like, hey, you wanna go to the bedroom real quick? Just test it out. Just be like, I'd love to, but I got some stuff to do in the morning, so I gotta go home, but I'll catch you next time. Just do that one time and see how she reacts to it. If her reaction is, oh, okay, babe, well I'll catch you next time, that's a great reaction. It's showing on her end that she's a little disappointed, but it's not going to completely ruin her day, and she's not going to lash out because you said no to her. Totally fine. If she says, what, but you gotta, and then how could you like, oh, I see, it's because I'm not attractive, blah, blah. If all this anxiety comes up in her as a result of you simply saying you don't want to have sex with her, then that's a bad sign. Because what that means is that, again, she's thinking that whatever reason it is like she could be thinking like, what is it about me? Am I not attractive enough? All these other things, but it's showing that she has some level of attachment to my worth is in if this guy wants to have sex with me or not. And if that's the place where it is, then that's gonna be a very hard thing to break out of. And then there's gonna be times when you legit don't wanna have sex and it's gonna constantly bring up arguments. And you don't want that either, okay? But that's why you gotta test this early on. Don't test it when you're 5 months into a relationship. Test it when it's like your 3rd time or 4th time about to hook up, and then you just say, I gotta go, you know what, something's not feeling right, or oh, I had a full stomach, so let's just do something the next day. But find a way to deny her sex early on and see how she responds. Secondly, waiting 4 days to call her. This is why I tell you guys, you wanna typically go on a first date, have a great time, and then you wait 4 days to call her. Now, obviously, on previous shows, I've said it's because you want to give her that time to think about you, think about the date you guys went on, and really start to assess where her feelings are at. But the other reason that you do that is to see where her temperament's at. Because a woman that is understanding and is actually starting to legit like you, but also has a good head on her shoulders, is not gonna be bugged by the fact that you waited 4 days to call her. If anything, she'll rationalize it. Oh, he was busy, he had work, he said he was gonna be doing this thing or whatever. And then 4 days after the date, you call her up and ask her for another date. A woman that has a good head on her shoulders will say, oh, well, he called me and he wants to go on a second date, so clearly that means he likes me. Boom, bam, bam, solved. And I'm telling you right now, it works because the relationships I've been in, I'm not the text every day guy or the call every day guy. I'm the take you on a date, wait 4 days, repeat. Go on another date, wait 4 days, repeat. Eventually they start hitting me up, and if they hit me up in between those 4 days, I always respond back and say, hey, nice to hear from you again, blah, 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 blah. Hey, let's set up another date for like a few days in the future. But the point is, I always wait 4 days, 5 days to make that next call. You wanna know, if you wait 4 days to call her, how she's gonna react. Either she's gonna be like, hey, I'm glad you called me back. Oh, great, let's go on a date, blah, blah, blah. Or she's gonna be the kind that's like, yelling at you, being mad at you, or getting snarky at you like, oh, I'm glad you decided to finally call me. Because if you deal with that kind of response, then you realize that's a woman that is very much like going to be the probably angry woman. She's not going to be able to think straight when you're in an argument. She's going to think everything's always your fault and not hers, and you don't need that, okay? But this all starts with what's her reaction going to be if you don't call. Early on in the dating process, you don't owe her consistent everyday phone calls. You don't owe her consistent texting, okay? You deserve to, she deserves you taking her out on a date, showing her a good time, and then you getting back to her when you get back to her. Anytime you call her to ask her out, that's letting her know that you're interested. So for her to be like, well, you didn't call me, so I thought you were no longer interested, or how dare you this and that is a woman that is very high strung. Get out, all right? Another way to test a woman's temperament early on, not texting her back right away. If she texts you, ideally you're gonna be in a conversation every so often, especially if you're doing like online dating, you're probably texting back and forth a lot. But at the point where you start taking her out on dates, most of your conversation should actually be saved for the date, because that's gonna be where you do the most of your relationship building. Things are tactile, you can feel her, she can feel you, she can smell you, all this other stuff, okay? But even with that said, obviously if she texts you, you're gonna wanna text her back. But again, every so often, delay it. So if you're used to getting back to her within like 2 to 5 minutes, have it one day where like she texts you out of the blue and you wait like 3 hours. Like again, you're probably thinking it's playing games, it's sounding rude, but think of it like this. Women, all the stuff I'm telling you guys to do, women do also. Especially the texting thing. I've had women friends of mine where like a guy will text them and they'll purposely wait to text them back just to see if he's going to react to them in a negative way. And that's when guys do like, hey, how's your day going? She doesn't respond. 10 minutes later, is everything okay? Is something wrong? Are you mad at me? Well, you're just a B word then, and how, blah, 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 blah. And that's how they're able to tell the guys that would trip out on them in an argument, and they stop seeing those guys. Well, the same is true for women. If you're texting a woman and she's texting you and she's like, hey, how you doing? Good morning. What's going on? And you just wait a couple of hours and you start getting these texts that are like, oh, well, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Or why aren't you responding back to me? I bet you're with another girl right now, blah, 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 blah. Now you know you have a controlling person, a jealous person, a person that's not patient. And again, it's better to learn this early on, even if you've been out with her a couple of times and you think she's the end all be all. It's worth testing this early on to see if she actually has a good temper or if she's going to like try to pounce on you for not being able to get back at her in a text for what could be a legitimate reason. Hey, you could be a guy that has a workload that you get up at like 6 in the morning and from 6 to 3, you're not near your phone, you can't text nobody. If she's getting mad because you can't text her back till 3:01, get out now because it's not gonna get better. Another way to test her temperament is telling her you have plans to do something and not inviting her. And this is when like say like you've been on 3 or 4 dates and then you're like, oh man, I just remembered I got a ticket to go to this thing this week. I'm going to this concert or whatever with this band that I really, really like. And she's like, oh cool, I wanna go too. That'll be great. And then you tell her, well, I got the tickets before we started dating, so I only have 1 ticket. And so I'm kind of going with a buddy of mine and I already promised him the tickets. If at that point she says, okay, I totally understand. You got a good one. Because it means she's understanding that just because you like her doesn't mean she's going to be able to come to every single thing you do. And that also sets up a precedent for in the relationship, you guys can both have things you like to do, sometimes with other people that the other person just can't come to. And testing out to see if she'd be okay with that is great. Because the other thing could also happen where you say, hey, I'm going to this concert. I already got the tickets before we started dating and I already agreed to go with my buddy. And a response could be, but you're in a relationship now, but why don't you want to take me? Oh, I see. So you like your buddy better than me? So I guess this means that I'm not that important to you, blah, 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 blah. That's emotional manipulation. And you need to sniff that out as early as possible. So every so often, do this thing where you tell her you have plans where she can't come to it. If she tries to invite herself, you say, no, it's not the kind of thing, you can't come, and see how she reacts. Because a woman that has a good head on her shoulder is going to recognize that couples need to do things apart regardless of how much they like each other, okay? Now, ideally, you like her enough to where you want to bring her to the majority of things you're doing. But again, this is just a test out to see if you didn't do that. If there was a couple of things that she couldn't go to, how would she respond? It's very, very telling. And then the 5th way you can test her temperament is giving a different opinion on something. I've talked about this before about how, things like politics, religion, various celebrity figures, those things come up in regular conversation. But how does she respond when you have a opinion that is dramatically different from hers? Because you're going to come to this thing with a different experience than she does in life and different perspectives, and that's totally fine. And there's going to be plenty of things that she's probably going to tell you that you're not going to agree with, but you got to keep a level head about yourself. I don't mind getting into spirited debates. I don't mind getting into like little things where, I think I'm more right than the other person, so I'm going to fight a tooth and nail. And she might be the same way. But there's a difference between handling a disagreement or difference of opinion like that versus demonizing you. So you come to her with an opinion that the sky is black today instead of blue. How is she responding? Well, I think it's still blue, but, I don't know, maybe your eyesight's like colored in clouds, something like that, but, I don't see like that, and here's why it's blue, blah, 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 blah. But, you're entitled to your opinion. Great way to handle it. Versus, don't you know the sky is blue? You're so stupid. Why can't you see anything? Like, if you think the sky is black, then I don't know what kind of person you are. You need to get there. Well, if they're reacting like that, again, better to sniff it out now, because you want a woman, not that's going to necessarily be agreeing with you all the time, but is able to listen to what your opinion is, see and understand why it's different. And at the end of that, maybe she still doesn't agree, but at least she's coming to you in a respectful way. She's talking to you and disagreeing with you in a respectful way. She's not raising her voice and yelling at you because you have a slightly different opinion of some stuff. And even if it's a topic or a situation that's like, has a very, very strong, like a certain opinion about a certain person, place, or thing, she might think that person, place, or thing, that opinion that you have about that is a thing that is really devastating. And if you don't change it, it's going to cause whatever, this is that. And again, she's in every right to be that. But most women that have good head on their shoulders recognize that even if they're trying to change your mind, it's better, you get more bees with honey than with like bug spray or whatever the saying is, And so I like relationships that I've been in, I find that the times where I'm able to have my opinion change is like, I might have an opinion on something and a woman will just kind of sweetly say like, well, this is what I think and this is what I feel of it and this is why I think you're wrong, no offense, but blah, blah, blah. And then just, if they come to me in a way that's like more soft and their demeanor's like, I don't agree with you, but I don't think you're stupid, basically. I'll usually go back and look at look at what they research and be like, you know what? I actually agree with what you had to say. And as a guy, by the way, you always need to be open to the idea that as right as you think you are, you could actually be wrong. And the woman you're with, if you're picking the right woman, in some areas, she's going to be smarter than you. And it's your job to be able to say, you know what? I don't always agree with her, but I'm willing to hear her out also and look up what she's talking about, and maybe that'll change my mind. So this level of respect has to go from both sides. But the point is, if she's not showing you that respect early on, then she's probably never going to show it to you, okay? So test these things out. Before you fall all in love with this woman, do these things to see where her temperament's at, because it's going to be a lot harder to break with somebody later once you've fallen in love with them, and then you're realizing, oh wait, their temperament's not the best, they're always yelling at me, they're interrupting me when I'm talking, they're demonizing me for my opinions on things, this is not fun, they're using emotional manipulation to make me feel things, or they're crying their eyes out when they don't need to just so I can feel some kind of way and get towards their side. And the only way you find that out is to do things that'll test that early on to see if it's there, all right? So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. As always, if you need more help from me, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the coaching tab or get one of the programs that are there, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. You can also support the show by subscribing to my YouTube channel, which now has over 1,000 subscribers, so thank you. And also, you can go to my website, click on the tip jar tab, and leave a monetary thank you as well. Also now, I have super chats. I got to figure out how to work the super chats so you guys can also, give a monetary tip that way as well. And I'll probably be doing some more lives as a result of that, but I'll figure that out later in the future, all right? But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Introvert Dating Success Podcast. Visit us at introvertdatingsuccess.com for more great tips on attracting women using your natural introvert charm. Oh, yeah.